All right, guys, Jameson and Alex here. Today we are talking about the Way of the Crashing Wave Monk. This is from Captain Hartchild's Guide to Oceanic Depths.
Yar.
This is part of a smaller Kickstarter kind of group.
Yeah.
But we found it, thought it was interesting, so bring it to your attention. It's kind of one of our fun things
It
to
said
do.
the word ocean in it, and it said it had my attention.
Yeah, so if you're new to the channel or the series, we're going to go over all the abilities gained in the subclass. We're going to rate the roleplay, combat, and synergy, how they improve the base class abilities. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to be entered in our D&D Beyond Sourcebook bundle giveaway.
Or other giveaway choice.
Yeah, on that. All that being said, let's get right into it.
First thing, special little note they threw in here with this Crashing Wave Monk, which I find interesting that they chose to put this in here, but it's fine. They said the subclass was designed with the Water Genasi race in mind, though it's not required. So it kind of gives you an idea of what what they were thinking of, at least in terms of flavor and all the other kind of stuff what to pair with it. But again, not required, which is good. When you pick this tradition at level 3, your unarmed attacks harness the power of the seas. You may choose to deal cold damage instead of normal bludgeoning damage for your unarmed strikes. You are also able to more easily feel the ebb and flow of water around you. You gain a swimming speed equal to your base speed plus your unarmored movement speed provided by the levels in this class. And you gain proficiency with tridents as they count as monk weapons for you.
So right on theme, right off the bat.
Yes.
Level 3, we also have Flowing Strikes. When you hit a creature with an unarmed strike as part of your attack action, you may spend a key point to harness the power of water to flow through them and move to any unoccupied space within 5 feet of the space they occupy. This movement does not provoke attacks of opportunity. I will make a side note on here, is if you are playing with flanking rules,
Yep.
this is actually really cool for that, because then you can reposition yourself really easily to make yourself be flanking.
Yep.
To allow allies to benefit from that as well as you. So that could be something interesting where you're trying to get that ability off for your party, or if you just want to reposition, maybe try to turn a creature's focus to a different, away from somebody else.
Yep.
You kind of do this shuffle thing around the side of them. But yeah, it's maybe a little bit more on the creative side with that to make it be like functional.
Sure.
If you're not using flanking rules, that is.
Next up is Frigid Spray at level 6. When you strike a creature with an unarmed strike in melee once per turn, you may deal additional cold damage to each creature within 5 feet of you, equal to your wisdom modifier plus half your monk level rounded down. So if you happen to be, it's one of those things that probably won't happen a ton, that you have a couple things, within range of you, but if for some reason you have the option to get a little extra. Cleave damage in there.
Yeah, I mean, even if you were, maxed, like level 20 with a maxed out wisdom, you're still, 15 cold damage at max level. It's not a ton, but it's free damage.
Yeah, it doesn't cost you anything. It's just once per turn, here's some cleave.
Yeah. Level 11, we have Overwhelm. This is where things get a little more wild, I would say.
Oh, is that what you're going to say?
Yeah, we have lots of comment. We had lots of discussion about this one ability in particular. Yeah. But yes, level 11. You have mastered making your form more fluid. When making an unarmed strike against a target as part of the attack action, you may spend 2 key points and attempt to overwhelm them with water. The target must succeed on a Constitution saving throw. On a fail, they immediately begin drowning and are incapacitated. Drowning creatures can survive a number of rounds equal to their con mod before dying. I'll mention some notes on that in a minute.
Yep.
The target can repeat the save at the end of each of their turns. Creatures that breathe water are immune to this effect. If the effect remains at the end of the target's last turn, they fall to 0 hit points and die. Creature within 5 feet of the affected target may use their action to end the drowning condition. So we almost didn't do this subclass because of this ability.
Because of this ability.
But upon further review and thoughts, it's not as, overpowered as it might initially seem.
I had to get him to come off the ledge a little bit.
Yeah, so first of all, it's a Constitution modifier.
Yep.
Which is...
Constitution saving throw.
Yes, Constitution saving throw, sorry. So that's a pretty common save. I also looked at pretty much every monster from like CR 10 to 12, and there was only a handful that only had like a one or two modifier.
Most of them were 4 or more.
And most of them that had 1 or 2 had proficiency with con saves.
Yeah.
So there's that. But I would also say for the drowning thing, it's like they make one initial save to start drowning, and then even if they had a 0 mod, I would have them make a second save.
Agreed.
To drown. But also in that distance there too. they have allies that could use an action to stop them from drowning. So as long as they're not by themselves or, separated from their allies in some way.
Yeah, it's going to be rare that you're going to be fighting one thing. By the time you get to level 11, when you're going to get this ability, it's rare you're fighting one thing unless it's like gargantuan in size or it's some very powerful caster. And a lot of casters, even if they have lower health, are still proficient in Constitution saving throws to avoid being blown up by...
And here's the other thing, too, that really kind of finished the thought process for me was they're incapacitated. Yeah. So even if it is, at minimum 2 rounds that they're incapacitated before they die, on average, combats don't last more than 3 or 4 rounds. Even from the DMG, they have you take average damage over the course of the first 3 rounds to gauge, CR and stuff. So they're anticipating combats to last shorter.
Yep.
So if something is incapacitated for 3 rounds and isn't dead...
Yeah.
That's very rare.
It's a big old boy is what it is.
So, in that case, they should be dead anyways if something's incapacitated. If your DM is just like, no way am I allowing this, maybe just ask them to take off the drowning part and just have them be incapacitated or even paralyzed.
Yeah.
Instead of having that drowning part.
Yeah, until they break the save. And just,
and just have that. And even, I think it's fine as it is. It might initially sound too much, but
anytime there's an ability that says they do this and they die, usually go, whoa, whoa.
Yeah, but if you actually take time and think about it and look through some of the monsters and stuff around that level, it's really not all as bad as it sounds.
It's not. So, all the in-depth discussion had over Overwhelm will take us to our capstone of Crashing Wave at level 17. As an action, you may spend 5 key points to create a surge of water 20 feet wide. The water surges forward 50 feet. Any creatures caught within the wave must make a strength saving throw or take 10d6 cold damage. On a failure, the target must make a Constitution saving throw or take on the drowning condition as if affected by the Overwhelm ability. You've also mastered controlling the flow of your body. You may move through a space as narrow as 1 inch wide without squeezing. So, nice little RP effect on your capstone there toward the end. So big giant cold wave. Interesting that there's 2 separate saves for this.
Double save, yeah.
So it's either like take the damage on the strength save, and if you fail the strength save, then you might drown as well. Which again, from a flavor aspect, it makes complete sense. Because if you got knocked down and drugged by the wave, you might have swallowed a bunch of water. You might be drowning.
Yeah, definitely.
Because this is a 20-foot wide wave of water. It's a lot of water.
Yep, that's a crashing wave crashing into you, which would be very, bad day for you.
Not good for health.
But those are all the abilities, so we'll go over the rating portion next. First up is the roleplay, asterisk as always. Talking about roleplay, we're talking about interacting with the world around you, interacting with NPCs, non-combat scenarios, avoiding combat, basically things outside the initiative order. Not talking about your class fantasy, history, lore, background, that's on you as a player. We can't rate you, but we can rate the abilities gained in the subclass and how they might improve your potential in those roleplay scenarios. It's a lot of words in a short period of time.
It is.
So, all that being said, looking at it, there's some RP, but it's very spread apart.
Yep.
Because, one, you're getting swim speed right off the bat.
Yep.
Which can come into play in
roleplay. And it's not just swim speed. It's a lot of swim speed.
It's a lot of swim speed.
It's scaled with you because as your underarm movement goes up.
Yeah. So you can really swim.
You really need some water breathing to go with that. But swimming you could be doing.
That would help. That would definitely help.
Water genocide. Or other amphibious race. Anyway.
So swim speed, great. But you have to have water to use that. And then also at 17, you get the narrow movement where you can squeeze through stuff and kind of like become water, I guess. But that's going from level 3 to 17. So there's a huge difference in there. And the swim speed is more situational. It's one with a 2 on the roleplay. Not really a lot to say in that side of things. But yeah, definitely some small, very circumstantial RP stuff.
Yep. Obviously, with that little RP, there's a lot of combat, and that's obviously the case. The initial opportunity to choose cold damage instead of bludgeoning damage off the gate is great, and it also says you may choose. So if you, on your first turn, you're like, freezy punch, and you're like, resist cold damage, regular punch. So, you have the option, so it's not always cold damage. I do like that it's a choice. That way you're not useless if you're fighting something that resists cold damage. That feels really, really bad when subclasses lean into certain damage types and you fight something with no way to overcome said resistance. If for some reason you are dealing with combat in water, you don't give a rat's behind. You're just flying around there, swimming through and punching, kicking anyway.
Right.
So the swimming speed, if you happen to be in water, is still helpful. Of course, with flowing strikes, you spend just a single key point to move to an unoccupied space within 5 feet. So again, like Jameson said earlier, if you're dealing with flanking rules, that's great. Otherwise, it's just a way to reshift yourself, move positions without provoking opportunity attack. So unnecessary damage doesn't happen to you. Frigid Spray, giving you a chance to cleave some extra cold damage once a turn if you do have 2 targets, within your melee range, which isn't going to happen a ton, but if it does, you've got an option, and it doesn't cost you anything, so that's great. When you have abilities that just like, well, here, take this, once for short rest things, so you can hit 2 things at once if you're standing next to each other. It's like, that feels kind of bad.
Right.
But this is just, if you happen to have it, here's some free cold damage. Okay. Overwhelm. It is 2 key points, so it's not expensive, and it's part of making an unarmed strike, so that's wonderful. It's not taking your whole action just to do this. You're essentially just throwing a bunch of water down their throat.
Yeah.
What it feels like.
I mean, if you think about it, too, 2 other just quick notes. 1, it's using your, key save.
Yep.
Which means you have to go into wisdom if you want it to be anything worthwhile.
Mm-hmm.
And 2, it's really, if you think about it, it's really just a slightly better stunning strike.
Yeah.
It costs more. It costs, 2 key points instead of 1. It's incapacitated versus stunned. Just semantics, basically. But the drowning condition, even if you just had it where it's like you have to use an action from someone else, or they could use an action to end it themselves, whatever.
Yep.
It just gives one alternative way to use that and maybe have the potential for something more than just stunned.
It's one of those things that it took me a long time to kind of wrap my head around this, even though Jameson yelled at me for years now, is that, if you use some ability or some spell to paralyze, stun, like hard CC something, and it only lasts for a round, you're like, man, I'll use that for just 1 round. You're like, and Jameson's always said, well, you got to think about that in terms of the whole action economy situation. If you force something to skip their turn, there's 4 people in your party, you're fighting 2 things. You give up your turn essentially to make them miss theirs. You've won because then it's 3v1 for then the whole next round of combat.
Yep.
So that's
change the ratio from 3 to 1, 2 to 1
to 3 to 1. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's the ratio is much better in your party's favor. So you have to keep that in mind. If it doesn't last, if you want it to go for like 4 turns and you're like, yes, felt great. But even if as long as you get it for that first turn, it's going to be very, very helpful for taking something out of the combat. And of course, finally with Crashing Wave, if you can just absolutely smash a bunch of things with a bunch of cold damage, that's great because it's 20 foot wide, so it's like a line, but it's a 20 foot wide line, 50 foot reach, so it's a very, very wide chunk, which is a very rare thing to get in D&D. A lot of like really long like line-like effects are like 5, maybe 10 foot. This is 20.
Yeah,
so
it's very wide.
Very good chance to like clip a bunch of stuff that happen to be. Because normally, it's only a 5 foot wide line. They have to be standing like directly in a perfect line to position yourself just right to get more than like 1 or 2 people with it. Like if you're a Dragonborn, like myself, your breath weapon's only a line. They've got to line up like 2 things just try to get more than 1 person with it. This is wide enough. You're going to get a lot of people with it if there's enough targets to worth using it.
Right.
It's a strength save, which as you get higher levels isn't going to be great, but it's 10d6. So even if they if you can hit 4 things that all succeed the saving throw, they're still taking this 5d6 cold damage. Still 18 damage to 4 things, give or take there. That's still not bad for an ability. You don't have to cast a spell on or anything like that. And if they do happen to fail the strength save, because it's there's a couple of little things helping the big scary thing, you can throw that drowning effect on top of them as well. So that's cool. All the abilities read off there with a 4 out of a possible 5. You get some early kind of utility damage change with a couple of really powerful abilities later on.
Yeah, I think one thing too is if you take the thought process of you're gonna be the ad cleanup, focusing on the smaller creatures, they're gonna have smaller con saves. It's gonna make your overwhelm and crashing wave stuff much more effective on smaller creatures, kind of like the minions than like the big bad, because they're probably going to have legendary resistances or, high con saves or whatever. So, if you focus on smaller things, you're going to be more effective and efficient with those. Yes. And that kind of ties into with the synergy as well. It's the same kind of deal. When things work, they're going to be fantastic. Even if you do just use it and you hit that con save with the overwhelm, and it forces another creature to use their action to stop them from drowning. That's great. I mean, you'll take that.
You've actually taken two different people's actions out.
Right. So that is still a big thing on there, just to force the creatures to even if you use it in a way to kind of have some battlefield manipulation, where like you make this creature over here drown. So now this creature has to run into a position they don't want to be in to save their ally.
Correct.
There's some, kind of strategy that can be done with that. That being said, it is a wisdom save and uses your key save.
Yeah.
It's a con save. It's a con save
against your
wisdom
modifier for your key.
Yes. So if you don't go full into wisdom, your save's not going to be that high, and con is usually a very good save. And it's similar to Stunning Strike, which is only 1 key point versus 2.
Yeah.
So if you really want to play it's kind of like a gamble, right?
Yep.
If you play it right and they fail, it's better than Stunning Strike. But if they don't, then it's like I wasted a key point because I could have just used Stunning Strike, and saved an extra point. So that's something to keep in mind with that. But it is, again, when it does work, it's going to be fantastic. And then being able to do that to a group of enemies, you can't Stunning Strike a bunch of stuff unless you're running all over the place, just flailing and spending a bunch of key points.
Yeah.
More than 5. I mean, you could just potentially hit a lot of stuff with a huge wave like that.
Yeah, because Stunning Strike is giving you the extra damage. It's just the stun part with a punch.
Right. So if you can get that kind of stuff to line up, it's going to be fantastic. So that being said, went with a 4 as well in the synergy. When things do work out, they're fantastic, but you kind of have to have certain circumstances align.
Yep.
Either focus maybe into getting a multi-ability score dependency, maybe going more in wisdom than you normally would to make that ability more effective, and force creatures to try to save their allies. But if you don't, then the saves are going to be really unreliable.
Yep.
So
it's good. Do you go Dex and then Wisdom before you? Then maybe you just make sure you get to con to like 16 eventually.
Yeah, that's the question with how you want to play it. So you have to keep that in mind as well. So pretty solid, very interesting and flavorful, which is a lot of fun. And we want to just point out some smaller creators as well that you might not have heard of, because I enjoy finding some of these smaller ones that hidden gems.
Yes.
But if you want to see
diamonds
more,
in the rough.
If you want to see more from this book, let us know in the comments down below. It's all aquatic, water themed kind of stuff. So if you're into that, let us know down below.
I sure am.
That's it for today, guys. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell notifications so you know when all of our new videos are coming out. Check out our Patreon. And as always,